The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering vinyl, composite, and James Hardie siding. WindowWorldOfWesternMA.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering bundled lesson packages including rental equipment and lift tickets. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, a visual look at the presence of queer women of color through a new film about the Northampton-based organization De Colores, and more with Michael Hanson and Erika Slocumb.
And if you've ever been interested in getting up on your skates and being a blocker, Pioneer Valley Roller Derby is holding open recruitment sessions for the next 2 weeks, and we'll talk with current players Bash and Fox all about it.
But first, an idea becomes a community phenomenon.
So break out your VHS players, because we have a tale for you.
I feel like I'm in the Criterion closet, which is amazing, which is like the only working video store that most people see at this point. Those little clips of famous movie people in a tiny little closet picking incredible movies.
I'm Kyle McLaughlin. I'm in the Criterion closet, excited to be here. Evidently, this used to be a bathroom. So if I need to use the restroom, I guess I'll just find a spot somewhere. So the first one I'm going to pick is Sexualizing Videotape.
But you have the opportunity to do this sooner than later in Northampton. Bill Dwight, former city council president and former video store clerk, as well as radio host, George Myers from Amher Cinema, as well as The Quarters, and Jesse Hassinger, former of Belly of the Beast, also on this side of the street in downtown Northampton on Main Street, teaming up together
To make the Illuminati.
What is the name of this project, George?
It's Visions Video.
This is a video store.
Yes.
You already run Quarters, which is an archaic location for fun old video games, and now you're bringing back another ancient technology, VHS and DVD.
Yeah, you know, that was a slight concern, and we've talked about this quite a bit, that there is definitely a nostalgia factor that people connect with this immediately, but for me this is much more like a living and breathing thing as opposed to sort of a museum experience.
Yeah.
This is really about, in a very real way, being in the present and being here in this space. So there are things I think from the past that are worth learning from and building upon as opposed to discarding, and I think this project is exactly
Like the Constitution.
I feel like you missed one vintage medium for George, since he also DJs with 7 inches of old school Motown and soul.
Vinyl, yes.
I mean, Jesse, with the restaurant, you can cook food at home, you can get takeout, but you could also get stuff that is ethically sourced.
Yeah.
That
Takes it the next mile.
Yeah.
Jesse, what's your involvement with this project?
I've always been a film fanatic. Film is something that's close to my heart. I went to school for it. I got an MFA in it.
Should I talk my son, who's looking at colleges, out of doing that?
He should go to a real college before he decides to go to an art school.
And frankly, if he wants more info about that, since Kia did it, he should talk to my sister too about why not to.
Okay. Yeah. Also, my friend who professionally makes films is kind of like, maybe you don't need to go, but people want the college experience. It's good.
These days, you really don't need to go. And a few years down the road, part of our vision is to include educational components to filmmaking and film appreciation to the video store.
Well, speaking of nostalgia, Bill Dwight, bon vivant of downtown Northampton, as I mentioned, former city council president, former radio host, and former video store clerk. I'm going to get all nostalgic and weepy about how many times I would be walking through downtown Northampton, usually after a wine tasting at State Street, and I would roll into Pleasant Street Video, and you and maybe Philip Price, who's part of the Winter Pills, would all be there behind the counter. The Red Sox game would be on the TV, and I'd just sit there at the counter and talk about the Red Sox and politics and movies for way too long. And that's kind of what is so exciting to me about this project. You're bringing the Bill Dwight back.
It's not the Bill Dwight. I mean, what you just described, I think, is what we've been craving without recognizing it for quite a while now. And with the advent of internet exchanges, those are not communications. That's not talking with people. That's having a slap fight.
Yeah.
And the thing about the video store, the thing that people lamented the most when the store closed, when Pleasant Street closed, was the loss of that congregate point, that point where people could convene and talk and kibitz about anything. Movies were the pretense by which you came in the door. Why you stayed, you were either drunk or you were...
No comment.
Yeah. Or you wanted to just kibitz. I mean, when George first approached me about this, and he thought I was going to say, no, that's a really stupid idea. And I unfortunately drank his Kool-Aid. I thought, Yeah, I mean, we're emerging from COVID. There was a desperate need to actually commune with other people. And this is a manifestation of, or a restoration of that kind of place you can go. Nostalgia gets you in the door the first time. It's not going to keep you coming back. You're going to come back because either you're really excited about the prospect of having a broader selection of movies that you get from a streaming service for cheaper. That's an appeal. But at the same time, you may want to come and actually talk to people about movies, or talk to people about potholes, or talk to people about the wheels coming off, whatever. We need that place. And, you know, people came to the video store, and as you said, they watched Red Sox game. They also watched the OJ trial. They watched the slow-speed car chase. They watched the 9/11. They watched the towers come down in the store with other people, as opposed to in isolation and without an opportunity to commune with each other.
To your streaming point, not just like being cheaper than streaming, but a lot of the stuff that you can't find on that isn't available for streaming, some of which isn't, because I see VHS, some of which isn't available on DVD or Blu-ray either. The rarity also adds to that community, because those of us who go searching will just keep searching until we find it, and having a place in town and amongst community to find that makes it all the better.
George, how's it going to work, Vision Video? While I was a member of Pleasant Street Video, when you know Bill Dwight, I don't know if I ever actually paid to rent a video.
I paid for my videos.
Which is perhaps why that place went out of business.
My brother-in-law invented a political button for me, said, vote for me, rent for free.
How is this going to work with Vision Video?
So at the core of it is the video store, and it will be a monthly fee that gets you access to the library, and there's no per item fee and there's no late fees. So the goal really is access for people to have this. One of the things that has been really, really inspiring about this project is that the core of it is the video store. But every time someone else has come into this project and become part of this collective, there's been a new way in which it has come alive. And that to me is like really is identifying the need in this community and the need in each of us to find an outlet for something that they've been dreaming of. So while we are really like focused on the core of our mission, I think there is also something special in not being able to answer that question. There are ways in which it is going to work that we don't know yet.
What if I don't own a VHS player and I want to rent Peeping Tom on VHS over here on this shelf at Vision Video on Main Street, still papered up and getting ready? Will the technology be made available for borrowing as well?
Yeah, we'll have some players for sale, and this is something we talk about a good bit, but...
For sale or for rent? Or for borrowing?
Probably both, actually. But DVD players, there's this illusion that it's a dead technology, but you can get them at any major retailer for like $30.
Just get one that plays...
PlayStation will play them.
Exactly, right. But get one that plays Blu-rays too.
Yeah. And so...
Like a PlayStation.
Yeah, right.
The VHS player is a little bit of an anachronism, but we will have those, and you can find them. So I think if there are people who are coming here and starting to feel that connection, I mean, that's another big thing we've talked about a lot is like rebuilding a muscle. And with like the loss of Pleasant Street, I remember it in real time happening. And I remember I didn't, but our house had a DVD Netflix subscription. And I remember it. Like, I feel horrible talking about it. But we watched Pleasant Street appeal for help and then close. I just think that there's a way in which we need to re-engage ourselves and take control of our agency in the institutions we build, in the decisions we make.
There's already in these shelves, even though you're in the building process here, hundreds and hundreds of DVDs and thousands.
Yeah, clearly thousands.
Where have these come from, and where do we anticipate they'll come from in the future? You want to take this one, Jesse?
Yeah, so some of these come from personal collections. I've donated a few hundred at least. We are accepting donations. We are a primarily donation-based library. We want to continue this being such a community-based organization that you out there are going to be building this library for everyone to use.
One of the beautiful things that happened in the demise of Pleasant Street Video is the community rallied around the video store to purchase the collection and then donate it to the Forbes Library. Right. So are you going to have a relationship with the Forbes Library with all of those things that lived at Pleasant Street for this new Vision Video on Main Street?
I think by virtue of the fact that we're in Northampton, that there will be a de facto relationship with Forbes. We're not competitors by any stretch. I think all we do is synergistically enhance each other's appeal. By the way, those DVDs that have been there for over a decade now.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
it has.
I mean, and, you know, I'm a gray beard now. I was an old guy then as a video clerk, and now I have the opportunity to volunteer here, and it's purely selfish because, again, I'm jonesing for that communication and that hanging out with people and talking with people. When George asked me to volunteer, I thought, hot damn, absolutely. I'd pay them at this point to annoy people.
You
with
can
my
become a
opinion.
member, so there you go. I think that's exactly what they're looking for.
There is that too, and I am going to pay them as well. So yeah.
Talk about the choice to be nonprofit. I feel like it's the course that a lot of arts organizations are and have to take in the tail end of capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse and I talked about this when we really reignited the project. There was a good bit of modeling we did, and it's still not impossible, but like the volunteer nonprofit model just felt like ethically grounded in sort of the project we wanted to build, but also just that's how we make it viable.
And we have the highest hopes that this is going to turn into a wonderful community space, everything that we've been talking about. But at the end of the day, it's still kind of like a question whether or not this is viable. There are video stores around the nation that are still in business. You know, part of this model is based on Beyond Video in Baltimore. You know, they've been very helpful talking with George through the last few years about this idea. We're kind of hitching our wagon to them in a sense and seeing if the community will rally around us. And I think they are. We've raised over half of our crowdfunding.
What's the goal and where are you at?
25,000 is the goal. We're over half. We're about 13. And we have about 140 people that have given. So that's almost $100 a person. So the community wants this.
I think there's just kind of that many hands makes light work thing too, where it's like volunteering and putting this effort in, like when it's running, the momentum of it, I think there's so many people that would be excited about the resource that this place would become, that donating their time, they will feel that, I think, on a personal level. That's reward enough. But when those people sit in here and see other people come in and experience the collection and build that relationship, that reward, it's just money doesn't matter.
And you did get the Valley's most famous video store clerk out of retirement, Bill Dwight, to come do this.
It's not a joke. It was a real honor. When I went to Bill, I was expecting him to sober me up and be like, man, we closed. Like, people don't want to do it. The money's not there. And he was like, now's the time. Do it. And I was like, dang it.
Press play.
Now I gotta act.
George very much undersells himself. By the way, he's already worked in a successful nonprofit arts venue, which is Amherst Cinema. But also, Hadley Quarters, think about that. There's no visibility to that place.
Yeah.
You literally have to find it. George made that work. That's another reason that I signed up for this. If you want to rely on an algorithm to tell you what movie to get, they're going to send you to the Pauly Shore oeuvre.
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figure we's a little juice.
As it were, and then you're going to go, well, what the hell is this? Here you actually have people who will talk with you, understand what you're talking about, get to know more about you than an algorithm could glean, and make a recommendation knowing that you could come back and go, that was the stupidest thing you ever, why did you make me see that? There are consequences. The algorithm doesn't suffer when you go, that was, Pauly Shore sucks.
Hey, how dare you insult the weasel?
The whistle.
You mentioned that you want this to have an educational component later on. How do you see that working?
This space is very small, but we are going to do some screenings here. We are going to hold events here. That's the easy thing to kind of start the educational thing with. You know, there are a lot of filmmakers in the Valley that we can lean on to show their films and hold discussions around that. Growing into a larger space is kind of an expectation that we're going to have to do within the first few years. We have an advisory board. Bill's on the advisory board. You know, that's the beginning of an educational aspect as well, because everybody that's on that advisory board has their own thing to bring to it. We're going to ask everybody to have like a list of what their favorite films are, and perhaps we'll have them come in and maybe do a screening of one of their favorite films. All of these ideas are things that are in the ether, and like George said, every time somebody comes in to be a part of this, they bring their own ideas too about what, you know, education around film could mean.
What's your name?
It's Norma Roach,
Where do you live, Norma?
in Northampton.
You've come here before we're even open with a coaxial cable and what else?
And VCR, which I'm so glad to have a good home for.
You even kept the instructions?
I
wonder
did.
what year this VCR came out.
I
Oh my
would-
God, I had this exact same VCR and these exact same instructions.
Oh, I couldn't do anything with it without the instructions.
Are you excited about this project, or what excites you about it that you want to participate in it?
Well, I just think it's nice to have an alternative to the big streaming companies, which are so expensive. I'm really not using them. And to have a better selection of movies that we wouldn't ordinarily find on those services. So it's cool.
Yeah.
I hope it works.
We're at the future home of Vision Video on Main Street in Northampton with Jesse Hassinger and George Myers and Bill Dwight.
What's the coolest hidden gem you've unpacked so far?
Ooh. Well, we just got an email. A friend of mine worked for Florentine Films with Ken Burns, and Ken was like, "This project is amazing. Get my full support." And he's going to send us his entire film collection, filmography. There are gems in here for sure, and I think actually one of the better answer to your question might be one of the things I've been so excited about is like looking through a shelf and being like, I don't know a lot of these films, and it's the exact opposite feeling I have when I'm scrolling, whereas when I'm in here and looking through this stuff, like I feel compelled to pull it out and look at it and then take it home.
I started out this chat by saying this is like the Criterion Closet. Can all three of you go pick one thing that you think is like a gem on these shelves?
I actually already picked it the last time I was here because in commemorating the passing of Marianne Faithfull, Girl on a Motorcycle, which was, she did a few films early on, and it was with Alain Delon. And you have to watch it. It's it was originally titled Girl in Leather, I think was what it was called. She's in a complete full body leather catsuit riding on a motorcycle. I'm sorry, that informs a lot of my own personal fantasies. I'm sure, exactly.
What's
Thank
not
you,
to like
Khalees.
about that?
Absolutely.
Who can't get behind that idea?
I mean,
Now you'll know the thrill of wrapping your legs around a tornado of pounding piston.
like, unless you have to pee, in which case this is the worst idea.
Yeah, you're going to notice as you look, we go from the banal to sublime. This is not a snobby video store. If you want the Pauly Shore oeuvre, I'm sure it's available or will be available in some level.
Buddy.
Yes, George has one of my absolute favorites in there.
Right
Yes.
next to each other. Two favorite films, Terrence Malick's Thin Red Line and John Carpenter's The Thing. They were right next to each other.
I love The Thing so much. I have like a texting chat group where we're always sharing The Thing memes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Put those torches on the floor and back off.
Just looking through, I was like, oh, that one. And I was like, no, let me pick a cooler one to impress Monty.
It's not about impressing me.
I would maybe want to flip this on you and say, pick a film out of here and I'll tell you as much as I can about it. But I did find something. This is one of my favorite films from way back, Excalibur. Definitely needs a new restoration of this because I think this DVD...
Lady of the Lake in that.
Yep.
You dare accuse the Queen, Gawain? I do!
This DVD has been like the only way that you can see this forever since 1999. So I'm looking forward to a remastered one of this, but we have it.
Khalees, did you pick one?
I found a bunch.
Pick one.
That's what happened.
Like, I saw a bunch of things I like, but probably one, in my opinion, of Kurosawa's most heartbreaking movies, Ikiru.
Nice. I haven't seen that one, so I gotta watch that one.
You will just cry.
Yeah.
Because I've met you.
I just watched Rashomon a couple weeks
I
ago.
cried at Ikiru, which means you're just gonna be a mess.
こんなもんでも作ってると楽しいわよ。ねえ、課長さんもなんか作ってみたら？
Ah, yes.
It's beautiful.
And this is literally part of the Criterion Collection, so there you go. I'm a sucker for this one. Chud.
Oh, God.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. I like to think of this as a prequel to Home Alone because it has John Hurd and Daniel Stern in it. And so, like, you wonder how they made so much money to afford that house in Home Alone. It's because of the work that he's doing in Chud, John Hurd's doing in Chud.
What's he talking about?
He's sick. Can't you see he's wounded?
The only things living in the city of New York will be Chud.
And then Daniel Stern becomes a robber.
Home Alone universe
Home Alone extended universe. I love this. Well, then we also have to bring in Dial Code Santa Claus if we're talking about the French movie that came out a year before Home Alone, where a kid tries to booby trap his home so that Santa Claus can't enter, and has an incredible ending song by Bonnie Tyler, which is batshit insane.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
You are now experiencing the thrall that comes with walking into a video store.
This is why video stores rule, kids.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely.
Happy birthday, Christmas.
I violated my no Christmas music rule for this.
I don't know if we should consider this an actual Christmas
I
song, even though Christmas is one of the lyrics.
It's called Christmas.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't actually do anything.
I want to listen to it all year long, so maybe I'll let that be the only Christmas song I listen to past New Year's.
Oh my gosh, that way lies madness. But anyhow, if any of that was interesting to you, Vision's video is slated to open a little bit later in the spring, hopefully in March. If you're interested in seeing the process as it happens or helping them make it happen faster, head to their Instagram page, where you can also find a link to their crowdfunding page.
We'll get a glimpse of queer black history for Northampton, specifically with Michael Hanson and Erika Slocumb, filmmakers who've worked together on a documentary about de colores and lesbians of color in that city.
But first, get your skates, get your helmet, and your pads. We're headed to the track with Bash and Fox of Pioneer Valley Roller Derby.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Consonants so hard.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering bundled lesson packages including rental equipment and lift tickets. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
I also love the fact that like the number one movie about roller derby, Whip It, it's Elliot Page.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that says so much kind of in that one little thing right there.
Elliot Page can join us at any stage of his life.
I bet he still good. Since 2006, Pioneer Valley Roller Derby has set a standard of inclusion as the first flat-track roller derby to offer both women's and men's teams, and the first to offer an all-no-gender team.
They are a nonprofit, volunteer-run organization with a mission to make roller derby open and accessible to all, and to foster personal growth, equity, and camaraderie in each other, their league, and the wider community.
They were the first flat-track roller derby league to offer both men's and women's teams, and in 2014, they became the first league to offer a team explicitly for people of all or no gender. And on February 27th and March 6th, you'll have a chance to join their ranks at their recruitment sessions.
With us to talk about Pioneer Valley Roller Derby are Bashet Hound, Caroline Moore, and 23rd Century Fox Girl, Akasha Bowen, a.k.a. Fox and Bash. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us on.
Derby names are the most fun part about derby, in my opinion, because I think roller skating, although it's something I did a lot as a kid, I'm probably not as good at as a grown-up. But coming up with fun derby names, that's probably got to be most of the fun.
So the reason that I chose Bashet Hound is because I am a dog trainer by day, and I was looking for a fun, punny roller derby name that reflected at least one of my interests, and I spent a long time gathering ideas and suggestions, and Bashet Hound was the winner.
Perfect. They're all puns, and they usually have to do with a little bit of fight in them, and that's what I love.
What are the base rules for long track roller derby?
You want me to take this one, Fox? Fox, in a previous iteration, was a roller derby ref and now plays with us. So that's why.
Wow.
It will take forever if you allow me to speak, so Bash, take it away.
Yes, asking a ref about the rules of roller derby is, like asking a lawyer to describe things. You have to be very, very precise. So I'll try to give the short version.
Sure.
So roller derby actually has a ton of rules, many of them geared around safety, because when you're flying around, bashing into each other, we want to make sure we can keep on getting to fly around and bash into each other. So we try to do it with as much safety as we can. So the way roller derby works is there's a big oval track taped out on the floor, and each team puts 5 players at a time onto the track for a period of time, which is called a jam. Jams can go up to 2 minutes. And the players on the track are 4 blockers per team and 1 jammer per team. The jammer is the one who scores points, and the way they score points is by passing by the blockers of the other team. So the whole point is for the blockers to keep the other team's jammer from getting by them and to help their jammer get by the other team's blockers. So that's why it looks like a hurricane, because there's a lot of skating around trying to keep folks from getting by you while also simultaneously trying to help your person get by. It's one of the few sports that you're kind of playing defense and offense at the same time, and everybody can play defense and offense, including the jammers. So it's a little different. It's very fast-paced, and it is very fun. There's a lot of strategy about how you can use your 5 players to most effectively do the thing and get the points.
We're speaking with Bash and Fox from Pioneer Valley Roller Derby, who have a chance for you to join their ranks February 27th and March 6th at these recruitment sessions. My grandfather grew up watching roller derby on television, and I grew up under the impression that roller derby, not unlike WWE wrestling, had an element of fakeness to it. So does that element of artifice and choreography play into what Pioneer Valley Roller Derby is doing, or is this fair play, rules and points and all? Former referee Fox?
there really isn't a way to do too much theatrics, that wouldn't affect gameplay. And these bouts are extremely competitive. No, you cannot possibly stage anything because we might not be getting paid, but the stakes are real. The pride is real. And occasional antics that are not game involved, but that's because a lot of us are very, very silly and very, very serious at the same time.
I'm glad the antics are still part of it, even if the artifice is not as much.
Fox, how different does it feel being a player from when you were a ref?
In some ways, it's a little bit easier. The biggest thing for me is it's in my head what I ought not do, and then I'll realize, oh no, I would have called a penalty on myself for that because I did something that was technically wrong.
She calls penalties on herself all the time.
Yeah. You have to deal with the referee inside, and that's even worse.
Yeah.
There are two referees inside you.
Yeah. We're speaking with some folks from Pioneer Valley Roller Derby with their derby names Bash and Fox. They've got these open recruitment sessions. It seems that you have men's teams, women's teams, non-gender teams, so open to anybody along that spectrum. But what about ages and abilities? How well do you need to roller skate if you want to be joining this kind of thing?
All great questions. We accept 16 and up. And if you're under 18, we need a parent to come and give us permission for you to be there. And we don't require people to have any previous experience with skating, with playing a team sport, with roller derby. Many folks come to us and don't even know how roller derby is played. They're just thinking it would be a cool thing to do and find out more about. So we do have loaner gear that folks can borrow to try it out, see if they like it. We do help folks learn how to roller skate. We start by teaching you how to get up off the floor safely, stand up, and how to fall down safely, how to stop safely, and then how to go. So we cover safety first, always.
But you're teaching these folks at the same time that your team is practicing at the practices, which I thought was a really interesting sort of intercommunity way to go about it. Rather than separating them out, they get to see how the team works once they're comfortable enough to be a part of it.
Yeah, we've always tried to integrate our newer folks and our experienced folks together, at least somewhat. We do have sort of separate groups in the same room, working on either the beginner skills or working their way up to doing some contact and then full contact. And often we have our newer folks, when the experienced folks are practicing that full contact hurricane whirlwind, we have them observe and learn rules and help with sort of referee skills. So counting points, looking at pack definition, which is a big part of roller derby rules that I will not get into right now.
Where does Pioneer Valley Roller Derby fit in local circuit? Like, who do you play when jams happen or when meets happen?
And where?
Yeah.
So right now our winter practice space is the Greenfield YMCA, which lets us rent their basketball court out, which is great. In the summertime, we get to rent some local hockey rinks, so we have more space. We can lay out a full track, and we can hold bouts and scrimmages there. We are planning to do some of those this coming summer. So even if you don't want to play, stay tuned, check our website, come watch us. Who we play, there are lots of other roller derby leagues around New England. So we play leagues from Massachusetts, from New Hampshire, from Connecticut, from Long Island. So we are looking into setting up some of those bouts for this summer with some of those leagues. Some we will host and some we will travel to them.
How hurt can you really get doing this, though?
Oh, I don't think you want I know I have a personal answer to this question.
Did you ever do derby?
No, I didn't. But I know somebody who joined PV, and she broke her ankle.
I was going to say, I think with most sports, especially contact sports like martial arts, football, etc., soccer for sure, there's always a chance for injury, right? So yes, we get bruises, you fall down, but I've been doing it for 10 years. And I've seen some injuries, but it's far less than you would think are the bad ones, like breaking bones, dislocating things. It happens occasionally, just like any sport. You fall wrong. But like I said earlier, we try really hard to focus on safety and good skating skills first before we let or encourage folks to do anything more risky, like whacking into each other, which is really fun, but it's far less fun if people don't know how to do it safely. So we go for a lot of stability on your wheels, good braking skills before we let people knock into you and test those skills out. So yes, there's always a risk of injury with sports, especially high-speed contact sports. But we wear a lot of safety gear, a lot of pads, helmets, etc. And we work on all of our foundation skills really hard before we do the higher injury risk stuff.
What are some things that people should know about coming to these recruitment events?
We're really friendly. People think roller derby people are like, grrr, we're tough and mean and angry because we like to hit people. But really, roller derby people are so nice, and we're so happy when people come and check it out. And there's no pressure, you can come check it out. If it's not your thing, cool. If skating is not your thing, but you still want to be involved, we would still love to have you. There's referee opportunities if you want to skate but not get whacked by people. There are non-skating official opportunities. We need all of the people, and we love building our community.
I think about it like the roller derby people are like rugby people on wheels.
An accurate comparison.
And high praise, I think.
Yeah, high praise. Tough on the field and
absolute cinnamon rolls.
I'm curious because my almost entire frame of reference, except for the fact that my grandfather watched roller derby on television, is through Pioneer Valley Roller Derby, who I've watched for, close to 2 decades now. And it's always been an inclusive space, as we mentioned at the beginning, no matter what your gender identity is or what have you. Is that kind of the situation for roller derby as a sport in general, or is Pioneer Valley Roller Derby
pioneering?
Yeah, to that end.
So hi, I'm a trans woman and I play competitive sports, and roller derby is a sport that culturally is accepting of differences and diversity and kind of celebrates it. There was a league in Long Island that took Nassau County to court because they tried to use gender assigned at birth as the basis for being able to hold a sporting event and organize teams if it was in any municipally owned facility, which is, in a lot of cases, there's not a whole lot of rink-sized spaces that are privately held.
Right.
I suppose one of the weird things is I've noticed that this supposed physiological advantage vanishes rather rapidly. I've lost so much muscle mass and so much strength, and being on wheels is a bit of a huge equalizer. Even if you don't believe the rest of it, you're only as tough as how you can keep your wheels down on the ground. There are players much, much smaller than me that could send me into the next zip code if they really wanted to. I love the sport simply for the camaraderie and the openness. My gosh, why would I have any problem with anybody skating with me? And I'm so happy that this league and the sport writ large have that same attitude.
I thought of a thing. Fox just brought up a point, which is a lot of people think you got to be big and burly to play roller derby because you're, whacking people. But all body shapes and sizes make great roller derby players. You will see big people, little people, tall people, short people, teeny little twiggy people, and everybody has, every body size, shape, etc. has its advantages and disadvantages on the track. So do not think that you can't be a roller derby player. Everybody can play roller derby and do well at it. It's all about that leverage, like Fox was saying.
I mean, I always thought it was the small, wiry ones you had to look out for on the track, but that's me.
Yes, they're very slippery and very pointy.
Yes.
Those hip and shoulder bones.
Yes.
Really.
Exactly.
Leave a
So
bruise.
pointy.
Really leave a bruise.
If people aren't able to make it to the recruitment sessions or practices, when is your next match where people can watch you in action?
We are still in the process of scheduling our bouts for this year. As we do that and the details come together, we will post information on our website, pioneervalleyroller.derby.com, so you can check there and see when our bouts will be and where you can come watch us.
Bash It Hound and 23rd Century Fox Girl from Pioneer Valley Roller Derby about 2 upcoming open recruitment sessions this Thursday, February 27th, and next Thursday, March 6th. It seems like wicked fun and a really fun community to be a part of as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, cool. You can find more information on those recruitment nights for Pioneer Valley Roller Derby on their website.
There's a whole form in everything. Up next, checking out the recent history of Northampton's black lesbians in a new documentary, we'll hear from the team behind De Colores, defining kinship, finding peace next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy. Admissions now open for graduate programs in 2025. Learn how to become a changemaker at umass.edu/SPP.
I moved to Northampton, straight to Green Street.
They told me about this lesbian rooming house in Northampton. And so I got in my car and I drove to Northampton.
I knew I was Black, but sitting in the pocket of my Blackness and that comfortable cellular knowing of sitting in my Black femaleness, I did not have.
We're not unaccustomed to the struggle.
Definitely knew that it was a white lesbian area. I mean, I'd pack a bag to come to Northampton. It seemed so far away in so many ways.
But I did find within the community these amazing women of color, not only from the U.S., but from Africa, from all these different areas, parts of the world that I found a real connection with. And I found that very empowering.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Through first-person narrative, De Colores, Defining Kinship, Finding Peace, tells the story of the community created by lesbian women of color who came to Northampton, Massachusetts in the 1970s and 1980s to live, work, and love.
The documentary is based upon a historic Northampton project to collect oral histories of the lesbian community there. The film was edited and scored by filmmaker Michael Hanson and produced by one of our favorite oral historians, Erika Slocumb, both of whom join us now, as does our director of the Fabulous 413 and one of the producers of the documentary series, Legacies, Stories of Black History in the 413, Tony Dunn, and by Reshma Razvi, the program officer at Mass Humanities, who helped to fund this exciting television project that lives on our website at nepm.org. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be here, yeah.
Our pleasure. This is one of the first things that I learned that you were involved in, Eric, and I've been excited about it ever since. So it was awesome to finally see what had happened with it, which is super cool.
Go ahead.
No, I think it's like the next big thing after Reliquary of Blackness for me, right? It's just like exciting to like be doing the work of oral history, but also just being able to be in the community with folks telling their stories.
One of my favorite parts of watching the documentary was it looked like costume changes of Erika Slocumb. Like there are different shots of you talking on Zoom to the different people that you're getting the oral histories from, but you're wearing different things at different times. And I'm like, I like those glasses. I like that background. It's fun. How did you find the women that you spoke to for this documentary?
Yeah, so this is kind of the brainchild of K. Marion Raymond and Betty Sharp at the Historic Northampton. They really reached out to me. And I think K. Marion has kind of been documenting the history of lesbians in Northampton for over, I am 38.
This is how I do all my math, too.
I would say for over 40 years, right? She has a brilliant blog online and, has been keeping track of folks, films, pictures. And one of the things, randomly one day she called me and she said, I found your name on the white pages, which I maybe shouldn't say that on public radio.
Those still exist?
In case you're searching for a historian, just like,
But, she said, one of the things I've realized in the work that I've been doing in, holding space for this history and building this archive is that a number of people have spoken with white lesbians in Northampton. They've been creating an archive of white lesbians, but not many people have spoken with lesbians of the global majority. And so, having, as a queer person myself, and an oral historian, she was like, look, do you think you could take on this project? And I was, it's been a number of years, and I want to say that, it started with Kay Marion in a list that she gave me of maybe 9 to 10 women, and some of them have passed, others are still with us, but they're around the world. And I think a large part of it has been word of mouth, right? So a number of the women that you'll see in the documentary, they're all connected through De Colores, right? And they know each other and they love each other, and they came up together in Northampton, right? In the sense of coming into their queerness, coming into their lesbianness, and having connected with each other. And so it was really here's this woman who no one knows, right? And I'm meeting folks, I'm at Marcel's house, and she's like, let me call, and, I'm on the phone with Juana, and Juana's like, oh, you have to talk to Vic, and you have to talk to this person. She actually sent me another person to talk to today. So it's been a labor of love, and definitely a labor of love, not only from myself, but from the folks in the community.
That's historian Erika Slocumb, who is behind the new documentary De Colores, Defining Kinship, Finding Peace, which you can see through NEPM's website and on NEPM's YouTube channel. Michael Hanson, you've scored this. We know you as Father Hotep. You've been in for that as well. And now we just found out you have a country project called Cow Person, which is amazing. I can't wait to hear that music. Talk about the influence of what you brought to this documentary.
Sure. So Tony Dunn was looking for someone to finish the project. And it was kind of on the ropes for a second just because of lineup changes. And I was around. I've done a bunch of work, editing, shooting for a number of them. So my name was just in the pool around making films like this. And Tony explained the project, and we went back and forth about possibilities for turning it into a documentary. And just with the timetable and what was expected, I think, of the scope of the project. And, some of the women in this project, are not local, so it was sort of you kind of have what you have right now. It's it would be great to set up, I could totally set up some really dope interview style stuff. I had the experience to do that, it would look really good. And it just didn't seem like that was a possibility. So with what we had, though, which were the Zoom interviews, I tried to pull, I think we had 5 or 6 hours of footage. I tried to pull together a narrative that spoke. So I did score it. I also edited it. Mm-hmm. I tried to pull together a narrative that told the story of what Erika was uncovering through talking to these women. And I think you did a great job. I mean, you use Green Street, Northampton, and a house that was there as sort of a galvanizing factor. Mm-hmm. There's a big moment where Audre Lorde is about to come and speak to these women in this era, and it really does tie so many of their stories together. Yeah. Exciting to also spend that much time with these stories. I definitely I've done a lot of editing projects, but nothing so specifically where someone gives me a bunch of footage and I'm asked to just make a story out of it. And I was like, oh, this is I love this particular process. I've always been the one gathering the footage and squeezing myself into a tiny box to come up with a result. But this was a lot more. I mean, there was still that amount of energy, but yeah, it was cool to have all of these existing pieces of media to interact with that were from Erika. and make something of it.
Yeah, it ends up being really interesting because it becomes sort of found footage-y through like all of the Zoom interviews and some of the photos that you end up using, like some of the extra video that you end up using, which is a lot different from the videos that you've been making for like performances and stuff, which is pretty cool. Like, how did you find your synergy together?
Ooh, so I know y'all know I can talk, but me and Michael, like, there were just like a couple of nights where we were on the phone for hours, right? Yeah. And I think like
I think it was really funny. I'm laughing because there was a point where I was calling Erika for some clarification. I'm gonna try because I feel like you know the story, but like I'm calling Erika for clarification on something. And we locked in on the phone for a couple hours. And I feel like it was an hour or 2 hours in where we found out that we were living down the street from each other.
You just walked over.
It was crazy, yeah.
You didn't have to look her up in the yellow and the white pages after all.
It's crazy, yeah. Super
That's
crazy.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think we should take a quick little break here, and then we're going to bring Rashman Razvi into the conversation to talk about how Mass Humanities has supported this project, this documentary film project chronicling stories of Black history in the 413. And we're speaking with Erika Slocumb and Michael Hanson, filmmakers, and our director, Tony Dunn, will bring into this conversation, too.
We are listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're talking about the new NEPM documentary, a first-person narrative, De Colores, Defining Kinship, Finding Peace, about lesbians of color from Northampton. Our director, Tony Dunn, is one of the producers of this. Tony Dunn, tell us about your relationship to this and Mass Humanities' relationship to this overall project.
Well, this project has been, it's been over a year and a half in the making, maybe even a little bit more than that. And probably it was last April, as we're coming up on, that I met with all the filmmakers involved to produce this series to explore the Black experience in Western Mass. And we were only able to do this through the wonderful partnership we have with our dear friends at Mass Humanities, who provided the funding to make this possible. And I hope you'll agree that this is exceeded our wildest expectations in terms of the scope and the breadth of the stories told and the response from the community. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful endeavor. And this is the final piece of the puzzle, the last documentary. And, as Khalees noted, it looks and feels a lot different from the ones that were televised last December in our television special, Legacy Stories of Black History in the 413. And it's so cool. It has its own feel. It's the first person, to Khalees's point, found footage, look and feel, make it so real and so raw. And the work that Michael's a little self-deprecating. He came in and he saved our hides, no doubt about it. And he picked up the pieces of a project and just exceeded all of my wildest expectations. And the nature of the footage used makes it just, again, so real, raw, and personal in a way that I think a more polished sit-down interview, had he conducted those, it doesn't hit you in the gut the same way.
Yeah, and we talked about Erika, and the person who's conducting the interviews can bring different vibes to the whole thing, and your vibe is a part of this, which is really fun. Reshma Razvi, who is the program officer at Mass Humanities, why is a project like this something so important for Mass Humanities to fund?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here. Mass Humanities is really invested in and invests in stories and storytellers in Massachusetts. And this particular film, Erika's contribution as a scholar, the combination of historic Northampton, NEPM, like all of it is just bringing together the story kind of ecosystem together in these really specific, beautiful ways. And this particular film and these stories of lesbian women was part of a grant under Expand Massachusetts Stories. So as a grantee, these stories are being collected, and then through our partnership with NEPM, that footage has been compiled and put into this beautiful film by Michael. And so this has been a good example of both part of our grant-making approach in shining the light on histories and stories that are not often told and shared, as well as looking to see how can we strengthen and be part of strengthening an existing creative ecosystem in Massachusetts.
So cool. This project started at Historic Northampton, as we mentioned before, and it's not necessarily getting a showing on an EPM TV, but are there plans to show it publicly so that more people who maybe don't have reliable internet, looking into the hill towns, can see it with like community?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually have a panel on April 26th at 6 p.m. at Historic Northampton, so 46 Bridge Street in Northampton. And it'll be a showing of the documentary and then a conversation with both Marcel and Pippa from the documentary.
So cool.
It is really cool, and it's interesting, untold history, and you did a really good job of taking this footage and telling a story about a town where we hear a lot about the LGBTQ history of this town, but from a perspective that doesn't get heard very often, and how, people were feeling excluded from a very white space, but how they were able to create a community through De Colores that really you can tell through the interviews how meaningful it was of a community for them.
And to both points, I feel like it's also telling that, like, out of all the women that they interviewed for their larger project, you got 9 names.
Yeah, there you go.
And only by talking to those 9 names did you get more names. So it's very interesting to look at that aspect of it, too.
The documentary is called De Colores, Defining Kinship, Finding Peace. You can find it on NEPM's website as well as on NEPM's YouTube channel. We've been joined by the historian, an oral historian, Erika Slocumb, who conducts and is a star of this, I'm going to say, as well as filmmaker and the person who scored and edited it, Michael Hanson, a.k.a. Father Hotep, a.k.a. Cow Person. I'm going to go listen to you right after the show's over. I can't wait. As well
you
as
can catch them at the Back Porch Festival next weekend.
Yes, our director, Tony Dunn, who has produced this film and this series, and Reshma Razvi, the program officer at Mass Humanities. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
On the next Fabulous 413, we get a glimpse of the first opera in Chickasaw language ever being performed at Mount Holyoke College this week. Maestro Chanhi Huineng Huing, oh my gosh, I have butchered this all day, chats with us about Jared Tate's Shell Shaker.
And the vital access to healthy produce in these colder months with Lisa Tots of the Holyoke Winter Farmers Market, where we'll find out about how cuts to federal spending, SNAP and HIP are affecting farmers and eaters alike.
Plus linguistic queries of all kinds with word nerd Emily Brewster, senior editor at Merriam-Webster. I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
Gonna love out loud, not afraid.